swing and a drive. Right field and deep. Back goes Aquino. It's got a chance. Gone. Get out the tape measure. Long gone.
Fly the W!
Cubs fans, it's time to fly the W with Dustin Rhodes and Paul Crawly Jean.
Joining me on the Fly the W podcast, we are happy to have on our old friend Jim Callis. You recognize his work from MLB Pipeline, and if you are like me and always have the TV tuned to Marquee Network, you see him on the road to Wrigley. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing good. It's funny. I was listening to your intro, and when I heard the ball go back to left, I always think of Brant Brown. Like, I was like, they can't be playing the Brant Brown clip. That would be crazy. But I thought you were going Brant Brown. So.
No, Brant Brown. We were talking a little bit earlier about the World Series, and every time I see Mark Pryor walk out to the mound, which he did quite often yesterday, but every time I see Mark Pryor, I just look and think to myself, man, just what could have been. And we're going to be talking about prospects and that, when I just remember when they drafted Mark Pryor and just watching him go through the system, and I was at his debut in 2002, all those years ago. It's just, I think that's what, for me, just when you talk about watching prospects, it's just always that hope that there's that one gem out there that's just going to break through it and wondering who the next one's going to be,
Yeah, well, it's funny because obviously his career didn't pan out as people hoped, but like the thing was when he was healthy and, he got about the equivalent of about 3 major league seasons in over however many years, he was really, really good. He was everything he was supposed to be. And I remember you mentioned Marquee. It just so happened that last year, one of the days we're doing Road to Wrigley happened to be Paul Skeens' second big league start. The day he no-hit the Cubs for 6 innings and was just unbelievable. And he was getting squeezed by the home plate umpire too. And he was still like, if they let him, I think he would have thrown no-hitter. It was crazy. I remember everybody at Marquee was asking me, like, did you obviously I had touted him, like, did you think he was gonna be this good? And I said, I hadn't really I hadn't processed it until I watched the game. And I remember I was like, I've been doing this now for 37 years. And there have been 3 pitchers who it was Mark Pryor, Steven Strasburg, and Paul Skeens. And I remember those guys were just the cut above every other pitching prospect I've seen. And those guys got to the big leagues pretty much overnight, probably could have gone straight to the big leagues. And when they got to the big leagues, they were as good as any pitcher in the big leagues from pretty much day one. And I remember telling people, if I had thought that through, I would have realized, this is what we're going to get out of Paul Skeens, because it's just like Pryor and Strasburg. And hopefully, Strasburg, stayed healthier, but was still, Hall of Fame type pitcher when he pitched. He just didn't pitch long enough. Hopefully, Skeens can stay healthy. But I remember the Mark Pryor excitement. Back then it was a different. I remember buying tickets day a game to go to his big league debut. And they were a lot cheaper than they are now. They're easy to obtain. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting when we talk about prospects because Cade Horton, it was really, to me, impressive watching him this season. Just it seemed like he got better with every start, and by the end of the year, I remember that game of Horton versus Skeens, and he absolutely held his own. And I just wonder what they have in him, if he really, what the future holds for a guy like Cade Horton. But just that mentality, that bulldog on the mound, and I was just impressed with how he was able to handle himself every single game. He really helped out when Shohei went down and just really killed the Cubs when that rib injury at the end of the season.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't know that he's necessarily going to be that perennial Cy Young candidate, but I do think he's an all-star. I think he's like the step down, like he's not Paul Skeens, Strasburg, Pryor level. But no, he is really good. And I think the thing people forget about Cade Horton sometimes is he's got to be 23, 24 now. He's not pitched a lot of innings. Like his level of experience for a guy his age, because he missed a year with Tommy John and then kind of only pitched half a year at Oklahoma before he came out. And then he had the year where he missed time in 24 in the minors. I still think there's room for more growth for him than the typical pitcher his age. And I agree with you 100%. Like in the second half of the National League, he was as good as any pitcher out there. And I think, obviously injuries are part of the game, but a healthy Cade Horton maybe the Cubs would have had an even deeper playoff run.
Yeah, and so with the Cubs out of the postseason, for me, I'm still watching postseason baseball, but it's not over. There's a lot going on in the Arizona Fall League, and when we talk about prospects and young guys who are going to be that next wave, a lot of times you can see some of that great talent in the Arizona Fall League, and if anyone has a vacation, you just went out to Arizona. I mean, it's a fun time going there and seeing all those games.
I always tell people I think it's baseball's hidden gem, and I'm not saying that because I work for MLB, but it's my two favorite baseball events year in, year out. And unfortunately, I don't get to go to one of them anymore because it conflicts with the Draft Combine or the College World Series and the Arizona Fall League. And I always tell people the Arizona Fall League, the best way for me to describe it is it's all of the best things about spring training and none of the worst things. Like you get to see a lot of good players, a lot of good prospects. But unlike if you're trying to go to Sloan Park in March, tickets are super expensive, parking lots jammed. If you're staying in Mesa or Scottsdale or wherever, the hotels are jacked up, the restaurants are packed. You go this time of year, especially once the playoffs end, if you go for the final week and get keep your baseball going, like you were saying, like the tickets are cheap. You could drive right up apart right next to the stadium 2 minutes before the game, pretty much. You get a lot more interaction with the players. You get your run of the ballpark. The hotels, no lie, are probably less than half of what they cost in the spring. The restaurants are not as jammed. It's just the best. And over the years, this is, I think, year 33 of the Fall League, if I'm counting correctly. More than roughly 2/3 of the players in the Fall League, year in, year out. It's been more than 3,000 players go on to play in the big leagues. You got Hall of Famers, you've got stars. It's really, I think if you love baseball and you don't go and you're missing out in the Fall League, you got to get there. It's like I said, it's all the cool stuff about spring training at about half the cost and with a lot less crowds. And every year there's good players to see.
And for people that don't know, when you talk about the Arizona Fall League, there is 6 teams and different MLB teams. It's not just the Cubs prospects or the Yankees, all kind of blend in together. So you get to see a lot of good players from also different teams. But the team that Cub fans would be most interested is the Mesa Solar Sox. And obviously, in beautiful Sloan Park, to me, one of the best, if not the best facility in Arizona. But why would a team send a player to the Arizona Fall League?
Yeah, and the nice thing is if you're a Cubs fan, you can always plan on their guys being in Mesa because the teams rotate. They kind of, depending on which players are sending and how they're putting the teams together. But so the Cubs will always be in Mesa, and the A's, because they're down the street, will always be in Mesa. But the other 3 teams, every one of the 6 Fall League teams draws from 5 big league organizations, usually 8 players, 5 pitchers, 3 position guys per organization. And that's how they do it. And there's a number of reasons. It could be guy was hurt during the regular season and you're trying to get him some more at-bats or more innings. With the pitchers, it's always dicey. If it's a serious injury, like last year when Cade Horton was banged up, you aren't going to send the guy there. But it's more like, oh, maybe the pitcher, broke a finger on a comeback, or he had a hamstring injury and he missed some time, and you get him some more innings. For position players, like the best guy the Cubs sent, the only top 30 prospect they sent on our top 30 list is Cole Mathis. And he, had Tommy John surgery right after they drafted him in 24. And then he played a little bit this year, and then they shut him down again. So he lost a lot of at-bats. So it's a way to get more at-bats. Generally, the position play, it's a hitter-friendly league just because of the way the ball carries in Arizona and the ballparks. But also usually the hitting talent is more higher quality than the pitching talent. Like if I have my best pitch, like Jackson Wiggins is interesting. You could have maybe made a case for Jackson Wiggins going and pitching, some innings. But for the most part, if your guy pitches a full season, you're not going to send him. Every team knows how many innings they want to get out of their guys during the minor league season. It's all planned. And if your guy stays healthy all year, then you're not sending him to the Fall League unless, you get to see a lot of reliever types, kind of fringy reliever prospect type of things. So, a lot of times too, even without the injury aspect of it, let's say you have a guy in high A who's going to be going to Double A next year. I think that people feel like the quality of the Fall League is roughly Double A. It can get him a month of, hey, this is what to expect next year in Double A. You could also have like a guy who maybe had a bad year and you're hoping, like, especially if it's a position guy, because the fall league's a great place to hit. Let's send him to the fall league and get him going. Like for instance, last year with the White Sox, Colson Montgomery did not have a good year in AAA. He played a little bit better in the final month of the season. And they sent him to the fall league. He'd actually been there the year before, and he stayed for 2 weeks and hit fine, kind of keep that momentum building going into next year. So, sometimes it could be you want a guy to get experience at a different position. Like Carter Trice with the Cubs a couple of years ago, the year they drafted him, they sent him to the fall league. They were trying to convert him to a catcher, and he didn't really catch in games. He caught bullpens, and he would DH once a week, experience catching. So you might do that. Or if you have a shortstop and you want to expose him to third base, or, infielder, and maybe you're trying him in the outfield, that type of thing. Like you could do some experimentation, because while they do keep scoring, they do keep stats. It's not, I guess it's kind of like the minor league. You're there for development. The actual results of the game is not the top priority.
Well, you mentioned Cole Mathis, and he was, obviously coming off of Tommy John, and he only DH'd for the Pelicans. But, he's a guy that can play both the corner infield spots. And the question for me, I guess, is when you see him, what do you see defensively, and what do you think the ceiling is offensively?
Yeah, he's got the arm strength for third base. I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, he was a two-way guy before he hurt his elbow in college. He's a pretty good two-way guy. Like, not, unbelievable, overpowering stuff, but it was legit stuff. He was a very successful pitcher. I don't know that he's athletic enough to play third base on a regular basis in the big leagues. Like, I'm 100% in favor of, especially in the minor leagues, where, again, development's the priority. You try the guy at the most challenging position he can maybe play, and you see how it goes. And if he can't, then you move him. And if you look at most big leaguers, most of your big league infielders probably played a more challenging position in the minors and then moved to a less challenging position when they couldn't quite hack it. I mean, the standard to play defensive big leagues is pretty high. I mean, he played one game at third base in college. He's not the quickest guy in the world. Like I said, I mean, he had a low 90s fastball, and he had a pretty good curveball too. So he could throw. I think he's probably a first baseman in the long run. And if that's the case, then it puts more pressure on the bat. I do think it's a little bit of a hit. I think he's probably got a little bit more hitting ability than power. It's probably 20 home run guy max. Maybe you're looking at you're hoping 270, 20 homers, draw some walks, but to right first base profile. And that's not a real attractive profile. Teams usually, to be a right-hand hitting first base in the big leagues, there aren't a whole lot of them. So we'll see. But like, he's barely played. Like I said, he, and you noted, he played some this year, but not a lot, and he didn't play in the field at all. So he's played third base. He's played some first base in the fall league. He's played mostly first base. He's played one inning at third base. He's on a team that has, I don't know how much third base action he's actually going to get in the fall league, because I'm looking at the roster, and he's on a team with Max Muncy, the big leaguer from the A's, and Braden Taylor and Tommy White. I mean, that's a pretty loaded third base team. So he's probably going to get most of his playing time at first base.
No, I think the prospect that most Cub fans have been hearing out of the fall league is Owen Ayers, who's a catcher. And, he already got recognized for the fall league week 1 top hitter honor and all of that. And a switch hitting catcher, which always gets me a little bit excited. Did you get a chance to see Owen when you were out there?
I did. He was crushing the ball. I was out there for that first week, and if fans can remember, Nelson Velasquez, I think, was the MVP of the fall league, and he tore up the fall league. I mean, there's a lot of guys who've torn up the fall league. He's currently hitting 405 with an ops over 1,200, almost twice as many walks as strikeouts. He's interesting. We'll have a story that'll be up on our website on Wednesday, where I was looking at some of the first half StatCast standouts in the league, and he and Walker Yannick have the 2 best catcher arms in the league. In terms of pop times. And it's funny, Owen Ayers has played one game in right field. And during that one game in right field, he uncorked, we listed the 5, we didn't do the 5 hardest throws by a fielder. We did the 5 highest personal bests, so we'd have 5 different names. And Owen Ayers, playing one game in outfield, threw a ball 92.5 miles an hour, which made the top 5. The interesting thing is he's getting up 27 steals in 9 games, so having a strong arm. I just don't think, the pitchers are trying to max out stuff. And they don't do a great job of holding runners. So people usually run all over the place in the fall league. But he's interesting. I think the question with him, he really finished the season strong offensively. Like I said, he's got a good arm strength. I think the receiving is the question mark with Owen Ayers. Like, he's not the greatest receiver in the world. He's also a little bit old. He was 24 this year, and he was in single A, which is really old for single A. So we need to see him tested, honestly, probably in double A next year, and he needs to clean up the receiving. But he's definitely interesting. There's something there. He's intriguing. He's not. I don't know that he's a top 30 prospect. Maybe if Jed goes crazy, Jed Hoyer goes crazy, makes a bunch of trades, I'll have a bunch of openings on top 30 list. I don't think he's necessarily a Cubs top 30 prospect, but he's interesting.
Now, one guy that, sometimes you just forget he's still in the Cubs minor league system is Ed Howard. Everyone remembers him from the Jackie Robinson West, all that story. First round draft pick out of 2020. And it just seems like injuries have just constantly derailed his career. And I guess I was a little surprised to see him in the fall league.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, teams take varying approaches. I mean, his story's kind of sad. I mean, he was drafted 3 picks ahead of PCA in that 2020 draft, and Little League heroics in Chicago, and his career just never really got going. I mean, the pandemic year wiped out what would have been his first year in pro ball. Then I'll never forget, so the Cubs had a bunch of super young infielders, middle infielders, and they're trying to spread him out the lower levels of their system. So he went straight to single A coming out of high school in 2021 without any pro experience, and he really struggled offensively. And I think he had a minor injury, but he played roughly half the season. And then next year, he was hitting a little bit better, but he had that terrible hip injury that was pretty severe. So he lost that year. And then, he missed most of 23. And he's just, the crazy thing is, he's drafted in 2020. Here we are in 2025. Even if we throw out the pandemic year, 5 seasons in pro ball, he's played 281 games as a pro. Total, only 21 this year. He was hurt again. I think they're just trying to, you send players to the fall league, but these teams also have to field teams. And so, I don't know exactly how it breaks down. Okay, you're sending a first baseman, you're sending a second baseman, you send a shortstop, whatever. But he's there. He's kind of playing utility role in Mesa. I don't know. I mean, you want to see him stay healthy, but he's never really hit in pro ball. I don't know that we're going to see Ed Howard ever play in the big leagues, to be honest with you. But they're just trying to get him some at bats and hopefully maybe jumpstart him a little bit.
Now, one thing I feel like, the major league team is lacking is, guys that can throw some heat, some triple digits, you know what I mean? And sometimes you see that. I was watching when they were in the wild card round against San Diego and just seeing some of those arms, and it just seemed like every guy was just throwing hard. And the Cubs have a couple hard throwers in the AFL. Tell us a little bit about Matthew Peters.
Yeah, but with Matthew Peters, and I'm sure we're going to talk about JP Wheat, both have live arms, and they don't throw a lot of strikes. And Peters has got an ERA. I'm looking here; it's 11.57. He does throw hard. I mean, I'm trying to look here as we talk. I don't know if he's hit 100 out there. But he's an upper 90s guy. It's a lot of arm strength. It's not a lot of feel for pitching, and he's been hit. And JP Wheat is kind of the same boat. JP Wheat, I saw him give up 4 runs in an inning on a day where he threw, I believe, the hardest pitch in AFL this season, 101.7 miles an hour. Coming in through the first half season, there were 31 pitches clocked to triple digits, and 16 of those came from JP Wheat, including 12 of the hardest 18 fastballs in the league, but less than half of those were strikes. And he got into trouble because he couldn't throw a strike. He's pitched 3 innings and given up 9 walks and 9 runs. So both those guys have live arms, but very little control and command. So they're kind of, I guess, in the lottery ticket stage of
scratch off.
Yeah, hey, the Cubs have done a better job developing pitching, and you want to see guys with arm strength. I think probably the best pitching prospect on that Mesa staff, and he's a reliever, is Luis Martinez Gomez, who had a really nice year in the Cubs system and is pitching well in Arizona as well.
Yeah, the thing about Martinez Gomez that's interesting is just the amount of pitches he throws, is pretty impressive. And so, hopefully, just getting that experience and just trying to keep that pipeline of talent coming to Chicago, because it was fun watching Daniel Palencia, but I got to tell you, I was a little disappointed that there was just, I think after Porter Hodge got injured, I don't think he was kind of the same pitcher that he was before he got injured. I was hoping to see Luke Little up this year, a couple guys that just didn't make it. So you're just hoping that, the minors can continue to produce some talent. Is there anyone else in the fall league that you think that Cub fans should be paying attention to?
Martinez Gomez is the one pitcher. Like I said, he's probably a reliever, but he throws like 6 different pitches. He's got a really interesting splitter that's been a good pitch for him. He's got a mid-90s sinker. The guy who's interesting is part of that 2020 draft, along with Ed Howard, Cohen Marino, who is this like kind of sleeper high school right-handed pitcher out of North Carolina, and he's just never been healthy. He's pitching now. I don't think the stuff is what the Cubs hoped it would turn into because he's been hurt so much. But at least they're getting him back on the mound, and maybe they can turn him into something next year. He's been okay out there.
I got to ask you, Jim. We were talking before the show about the World Series. What do you think happens tonight? This is no longer AFL. I got to ask you though. That was an amazing game last night. And what do you see happening tonight between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays?
Yeah, it's hard to know how tired or obviously getting on base 9 times took something out of Shohei Ohtani, but like I shouldn't say bet because I'm not allowed to bet on baseball. But I was gonna say if you were betting, like are you gonna bet on Shohei Ohtani or are you gonna bet on Shane Bieber? Like it seems I don't know. It just seems like that loss last night is one of those things. On one hand, you feel like okay, the Dodgers are probably a slightly better team. They got the momentum. Like maybe they win it in 5. Although we were talking before we start recording, and I think back to 2018. And now that year, the Dodgers were down 2-0 instead of being tied 1-1. They played an 18-inning game. They won it with a dramatic walk-off homer. It seemed like they had all the momentum, and the Red Sox went out and beat them in the next 2 games and won the World Series in LA. So I don't know. I mean, it just seems like inevitable might be a little strong, but it seems like we're headed towards. I mean, Shohei Ohtani. I just feel like he's going to be the story again tonight. I mean, the last time he pitched, we got 6 scoreless and 3 home runs.
Unbelievable.
So I just feel like Shohei is going to roll tonight, and then they're just 1 win away.
Well, Jim, tell our listeners, you said you had the article coming out on Wednesday that they should be looking forward to. Where can they find your work, and where can they follow you on the socials?
Yeah, it's all of our stuff is at MLB Pipeline, which is part of MLB.com. It'll be out there. The Arizona Fall League has a website too, which I believe is ArizonaFallLeague.com, and the stuff kind of duplicates there. I'm proud of myself. Old man Callis has limited himself to 1 social network. I was on Blue Sky for a little bit, but there was no interaction there. I was on Blue Sky until I'm just on Twitter, Jim Callis MLB, and I do post everything that I write. I try to link on that account. I do interact with fans to some degree. I'll post some of the other stuff we run. MLB Pipeline has a really nice account that links everything we do. But like I always tell people, everything we do, because we have editorial independence. Like we're not like, oh, you have to pump up guys. We can write about whatever we want and analyze players as we see fit. But everything's free at MLB.com. Nothing's behind a paywall because MLB.com's trying to promote the game. Bring attention to these players. So it's all free, video, scouting reports, what have you, is free at our website.
Well, Jim, I appreciate you jumping on, and hopefully I see you in Mesa in the springtime.
Yeah, it's I'm usually out there. Arizona's a dream. Arizona's a lot easier than running around Florida where nothing's close. So I hope I see you in Arizona and I get to skip Florida this year. I did both. I did both this year. I did 10 days in Arizona, and then I did 5 days of spring breakout. Run around for that. But yeah, I hope I run into you this year as well.
And looking forward to seeing you guys at the Road to Wrigley, my favorite show on Marquee. It's always fun seeing you guys whip it around, and you guys just seem to have a great chemistry.
No, we do. It's a lot of fun working with Lance and Elise and other guys like Ryan Sweeney and Alex Cohen was part of it. We got to get you out to the Fall League. How about if I see you in Mesa the final week of the season?
All right, let's see what we can do. Thanks so much for jumping on, Jim, and have a good night.
You too. Thanks.
all over.